When people talk about how students acquire and process information, or what we commonly call learning, we think about science, brain science, that is. A lot about how we learn is influenced by brain chemistry, synapses, and other scientific terms. But not only is brain science involved in how we learn, but much about how we learn is actually learned behavior through our environment. And our culture has a lot to do with how we are socialized from a young age to learn. Let's start with a summary of the scientific information about how our brains learn. First, in order to even be open to learning, students need to be in a relaxed and accepting state of mind. When their body is in fight or flight reflex, their guard is up and it becomes difficult for students to open up to learning. They become defensive. So, the first step to learning is for students to be in a state of mind that is relaxed and comfortable for students. Once students are in the right mindset, their guard is down and they are ready to receive new information. After that information is presented to students, then they need to do something with it in order to make sense of it. They connect it back to prior knowledge that they already have. This is how they make sense of the information. They search their schema for a box to put that information inside of. And if they cannot find the right box, then they create a new box close to a similar box. You're probably starting to think, yes, I've already learned this in college. What does this have to do with culturally responsive teaching? The answer is a lot. We use learning partnerships, a component of culturally responsive teaching, to help students get to that comfortable state to be open to learning. And then we use our understanding of a student's background, experiences, and funds of knowledge to help them put the new information in a box they already have. The tricky part is not assuming that the students have the same boxes as we do, because everyone has different boxes based on their culture, their identity, and their experiences. So that's the simplified brain science behind how we learn. Now you may be wondering, what does culture have to do with learning? When we are little, we learn in informal environments. These informal environments are shaped by our culture. Most cultures generally fit on a spectrum between two archetypes: collectivist cultures all the way to individualistic cultures. American, European, Canadian, and Australian cultures are predominantly considered individualistic cultures. Students from individualistic cultures do well with independent activities and are focused on independent achievement. They have the belief that they have to take care of themselves first in order to get ahead. They learn or study best by reading and writing and are generally motivated more by competition. Their individual status is important to them. African American, Mexican, and mostly all South American and many African and Asian cultures are more aligned towards collectivist cultures. Students from collective cultures learn relationally. They learn best through collaboration, dialogue, and interaction. They have a stronger need for affirmations and reassurance. These students are more interested in helping the group get ahead, even still at times if it deters from their own progress. Because individualistic and collective cultures are on a spectrum, students can come from cultures that are highly individualistic, moderately collective, highly collective, and all these levels can also vary between families of the same culture. Also, these patterns can vary based on a person's level of formal schooling, their experiences, their peer groups, and many other factors which impact the way people are socialized. Now, think about school. What culture do you think our schools here in America favor? You got it. Our schools and most teachers' teaching styles favor individualistic cultures, even when that is not the culture we as teachers had in our own homes or as learners. Teachers who may have come from more collective cultures most likely were successful in school because they learned how to code switch between their home culture and their school culture. Think about this: the emphasis on independent work, homework, independent reading, writing, GPAs, grading skills. They're all geared toward more individualistic cultures. As a teacher, you've probably explained to your students the directions to an assignment as a whole group, then passed out a worksheet and said, okay, go ahead, get started. Most kids knew your expectations and they quickly leaned down and started reading and writing down the answers. But maybe one student turned to another and started talking. You looked at that student and quickly asked, what are you doing? And he replies, we're working. Then there starts the exchange of, why are you talking? And he says, well, we're partners. And you give him that look like, of course, you know, there are no partners. See, when you said get to work on this worksheet, you assumed that the students knew that you meant individually. And most of the students did understand your assumption because you were thinking from an individualistic stance. But those kids who started talking right away about the assignment, they didn't assume it was individually. They assumed collectively. Most likely, the students who were talking may have come from a collective culture and they learned through dialogue. Maybe right after you gave the directions, another student asked right away, what are we supposed to be doing? You were frustrated as a teacher because you just told everyone the directions and are thinking this student should have been listening. But maybe that student was listening and just needed reassurance that what she heard was correct. Maybe she's a communal learner and needs more reassurance and affirmations than other students. It may not be an off task behavior, it may be a communal or collectivist learning behavior. Our schools emphasize personal responsibility for learning, even when most of the lessons we teach are to the whole group. Most teachers, most schools, and the entire field of education are aligned to benefit individual cultures. But the culturally responsive teacher, you must approach learning with activities that benefit both individualistic and collectivist cultures. Understanding the difference between collectivist cultures and the individualistic cultures will help you to identify the types of students or the types of learners you have in your class, thus giving you a better opportunity to match students with the right culturally responsive teaching strategies. In the culture responsive teaching strategies video, we will explore ideas on how to tweak your curriculum to create lessons that cater to both individualistic and collectivist cultures. However, before we discuss those strategies, we will explore how to create deep, effective relationships with students in order to help them leverage their learning. In the next video, building effective learning partnerships.